Welcome to the Lovecars On The Grid podcast, your global motorsport roundup with me, Tiff, Needell and Paul Woodman.
Welcome to Lovecars On The Grid, your global motorsport podcast roundup.
Paul.
Yes. Oh.
I was about to say you got a hat on your head. I understand now. You've pulled your butt.
Has been broken. This is a very serious matter. We picked Red Bull up, and it's the most incredible dominant run with one of the most amazing drivers of all time. But finally, we had a Grand Prix race. More of that to come. I'll take off this silly hat for those of you watching. NASCAR. The title runners are down to 12. The final 12 with NASCAR. There's a Porsche won 2 at Indianapolis for the IMSA race. The Chevys are still leading the way down under. There's only a 2 manufacturer race there anyway. The Chevys are definitely dominating. And the beer monsters, talking of dominated at Alton Park for the British Superbikes over the weekend. And we go to Sardinia for some off-road buggies, the Extreme E off-road buggies. But let's have a chat about the Formula One. Tiff, Needell. Thank goodness we had a race.
Wonderful.
Race,
your sound's a bit echoey, by the way. I don't know, your sound's a bit echoey, Paul. But, keep going. It's just slightly different. You're using a different microphone.
Well, I've been on the Champers as well. I've been celebrating. I've been,
that's why. It's your voice.
I haven't stopped. No, it's it. Look,
what's a relief? What they
achieved was amazing, incredible. And Max is incredible. Finally, we had a race. It was a close race. Okay, it's a street circuit, and you can say ifs and buts, but Red Bull didn't even turn up.
That was wonderfully entertaining. I mean, from qualifying, which was so exciting, right through to the end of the race, we were all on the edge of our seats. I mean, nothing actually really happened, but it was one of those races that had so much potential. You thought something was going to happen, but it didn't quite happen. But yes, I mean, I think everybody just wanted someone else to win. Nobody really cared. They just, I think sometimes they get a bit cocky at Red Bull. Max sometimes says, shall we give the mechanic some practice when he's winning by about half a minute? And then he says, another win with a sort of. So yes, I think everybody was a breath of fresh air down in Singapore, a breath of very hot and humid air. I mean, incredible racing around there. The fitness of these drivers nowadays is just outstanding. There was a lot of talk, of course, about the Red Bull was slow because there's loads of conspiracy theories on the internet because the Flexi 4 a wing clamped down. They had a clamp down on the regulations. They've clarified rules about amount of movement of wings. But, Red Bull said they didn't change anything. And they apparently had a new floor idea, which was new for Singapore, which actually took off for the race. So that really... And I think we'll have to wait to Singapore to see... Wait till Suzuka to see whether there is really any permanent problem with the Red Bulls. But I somehow doubt it.
Look, any Red Bull fans that are listening and watching, you don't worry. Normal service will resume next week at Suzuka. So I had to vent some of my jubilation.
Enjoyable. We all enjoyed it. I mean, it was enjoyable. It's just the sport's no fun if nobody else ever wins. And even though you've got a dominant team, it's great when something happens. And it was, from Q1 with Lance's Stroll's, horrifying shunt. But were you watching that live? Because I think so many of us were watching it live. Yeah. And it's so much more of a sort of, when you hear yellow flag turn 1, they have a replay when the driver's already getting out of the car, But to watch that on board as it happened, massive shunt.
I said I was watching with Oliver, my son, and I said, if that happened in Tiff's day, the guy would be dead. And then they came on the radio and said, or the commentator said, if that happened 10 years ago, they probably would have died, which I don't think 10 years ago, but not very long ago. It just shows the testament of how strong these cars are. Incredible.
Well, that safer barrier, which is something they brought over from American NASCAR, has that amazing deflection and takes so much that impact. I'm thinking, okay, that Daddy will, can I have another car, please, Daddy? I thought this has got to be the end. Surely not.
Got to stop saying that. Surely. He's proven himself.
He hasn't proven himself enough. He's nowhere near Alonso. He's not quick enough. But Mike Crack, the team manager, managed to say that crash proved Lance's commitment. He wasn't going to lift off. No, it proved his stupidity. When you got a massive... They highlighted how much lock he had. A massive understeer. Yeah. And he just chose to keep it nailed. Of course, it was the curb that was his downfall. So probably next year, they've got to flatten the curb more. You can't have a crash. Well, if you go off the road like that, you deserve some. I know he doesn't deserve a massive crash, but Mike Crack said that proved his commitment, or stupidity, one of the two. But of course, the crash then didn't ruin too many's qualifying. Put Oscar Piastri out, which is a great shame. He dumped him out along with the two Alphas, who were always out anyway. And they're two Alphas, honestly. I mean, I don't know
what have they
contracts
done?
they have, because Théo Pourchaire, they announced last week that Théo Pourchaire, their young driver, who's had 3 years of Formula 2, he's finished 5th in his first year, 2nd in his second year, he's won the Formula 2 championship. I mean, hugely experienced. He's only 20, but he's a very experienced racing driver. When you look at what Piastri's doing, we'll come to what Liam Lawson did in the race. And yet still they signed up Bottas and Zhao. And
I get
is
Zhao,
the money
because Zhao is the money, but Bottas, my goodness, come on.
But is that the money? Do we actually know? We presume he must bring money, otherwise, surely. I mean, it's so just because you see, Pourchaire can't do Formula 2 again. When you win the championship, you can't do it. So they've announced he's their reserve driver. I know, but it's the same as Drugovic. He's now Aston Martin's spare drivers. So either you try to do Formula E, or you go to IndyCar, or you try to look at Super Formula in Japan. If all these kids are coming up and they're not getting the breaks, it's a great shame for Formula One.
I think everybody gets it. They're not getting the breaks if you got the right drivers in the right seats. But Bottas, please somebody tell me how Bottas is still there for another year.
Experience. It brings experience.
So what?
Brings experience.
But Oscar and Liam have both proven that you don't need that experience. You really don't.
Yeah. So that was good. Then Q2, of course, we had all the drama of the Red Bulls not getting through. We had Max definitely impeding Tsunoda, but somehow getting away with it because the Alpha Tauris didn't turn up at the... I don't think it's, again, the Twitter's gone mental about Red Bull running the FIA, but there was lots of goings on because there was already an inquiry going about Sargent holding up Stroll, but as Stroll's representative was in the hospital, Stroll's representative couldn't come, and then they thought, well, okay, we don't need all representatives, and somehow they decided that he didn't deserve I think they got fined for blocking, but no grid penalty. But of course, he didn't make the top 10, and of course, ironically, he was stopped by the AlphaTauri of Liam Lawson from getting in the top 10, which I thought was brilliant. Checo spun off in his pathetic attempts to qualify. Obviously, a really hard car. It's all in the dampest, but they had I've read today that they've been in the simulator. There's a new surface at Singapore, and they tried to work out the bumps. They don't really know till they get there exactly what the new surface is going to feel like, and the shock absorber suspension were all a bit out of kilter with the downforce, and that's what they were struggling with. The car was obviously, a very tricky car to drive. And, Lawson gets through, Sergio spins, and there's always the will he get more grid penalties. But also the traffic jams, they have got to. I mean, that was terrifying. Some of those when they did the replays at the end, of the different, and some drivers were going through, because Lance Stroll himself overtook about 4 or 5 cars to jump the queue. And I think the Sargent, I wasn't quite clear, he squeezed through between the wall and the pack of cars going at 5 miles an hour. Apparently he was on a fast lap. I mean, it's just they've got to come up with a system.
Well, they did change it. Of course, in Monza, they said you've got to do a minimum track time, but they
took that away.
Took that away for Singapore because it'd be too dangerous because you got 2 blindsided corners. But it was awful, really dangerous. Something's going to happen. Then they're going to say, "Oh yeah, we should do something about that, shouldn't we?"
Yeah. But then apart from then so the top 10 got the Q1, then Q3 was just awesome, wasn't it? With the top 3, 8 hundredths of a second. No one expected George to come to suddenly put that time in. We thought he'd be a Ferrari 1-2. I took the mickey out of Ted because Ted Kravitz said, I think I'm going to predict, that Sainz will be on the front row, having dominated in free practice 2 and free practice 3. We all expected the Ferraris for the front row. So George got up there, was amazing. Lando, of course, 4th ahead of Lewis. Lewis had a very quiet weekend, didn't he? And, until the race, but I think maybe at the end of the race, he was the Mercedes that could have won. Who knows? But yeah, just so entertaining to the qualifying session. Obviously, but a crash obviously makes more drama of the whole place. Tsunoda, of course, didn't get through. Blocked by Max and Sergio, and Liam Lawson took the 10th spot. So. And
Ocon had a good race. I'm not the biggest Ocon fan, but I tell you what, he is one of the best at overtaking because he doesn't care less, really. And if you got that attitude, you're super hard to defend against.
That was the race. Before the race, then did you see Conor Moore's latest?
No,
I don't think our friend Yerry who comments should watch Conor Moore's. Conor Moore did an amazing, post-qualifying, because he does Christian Horner as one of his best characters. He seems to have got Christian Horner absolutely nailed,
nailed him as well, yeah.
But it started with Max was just ranting, Christian, how can you make me look so stupid? How can I look so stupid? I'm an idiot. What you gonna do? How are you gonna fix it? And he sort of picked up he smashed something, and Christian, in perfect Christian, said, "No, not the Spice Girls poster." And it went on until eventually Max walked out of the room, and Checo was there as well. And every time Max ranted, Checo was like, I agree. So you have to find it, Conor Moore's later. And in the end, Checo was left in the room saying, I agree with Max. And he pushed the hat stand that fell over. He picked it up. Oh, sorry, Christian, sorry. And then the best bit was the end, because then all of a sudden, Ricardo comes in. I like a shed. You have to sack Colosseum now. Must go home. And he said, and so Christian says to Ricardo, Daddy, you've had 3 months to harm Perez. You haven't managed to damage him. You've still got Perez there in the seat. And so at the end of the sketch, Ricardo picks up his damaged hand and said, I tried to punch him, and he hits the. You've got to watch it. Everyone has to go, apart from Yerry. Yerry, if you're still listening with us.
Yerry, if you are listening, I'll have a little quiz with Tiff. So, Tiff, Max Verstappen, who has won the most Grand Prix out of him and Damon Hill?
I presume Max Verstappen. What do you mean?
What about Jim Clark and Max Verstappen?
Way more than Jim Clark.
What about Jackie Stewart?
Already.
What about Jackie Stewart?
Yeah, more than Jackie Stewart.
Nigel Mansell?
It's a good punchline. I'm getting bored. They're more than Nigel Mansell.
So 4 of the 5 most successful British Grand Prix drivers of all time, and Max has already got more Grand Prix wins than them. He is phenomenal. So as much as I am, as happy as I am that he didn't turn up this weekend, or Red Bull didn't turn up this weekend, he is a phenomenal talent, that's for sure. And what an amazing race! Great for Carlos Sainz. Good to see Lando in second place. I agree with you. If Lewis was just let through, because shows how on the edge they are, because George stick it in the wall on the last lap.
I think George did his tyres on that chase, but it began with, I like Lewis's calculated move on lap 1 when he just went wide. He knew he was going to do that. I think it's not sort of new. If he got in a position where he couldn't get by, but he just nailed it through. What I disappoint me, they give us these wonderful radio clips which entertain us. There must have been some brilliant communication between Mercedes and Lewis, especially when he said you've got to get Lando past as well. And why don't we get some of that? Would have been so good. Oh man, why Lando? Man, I've got to man Lando as well, man. He must be well pissed off that he had to let Lando by as well. But then we had the first half of the race was like a Formula E race. They were all just cruising, and they're all, how slow shall I go now to save my tyres? The DRS wasn't affected around that track at all. It wasn't strong enough or long enough. And so they all just cruised up, and then they're telling Leclerc to have a 3-second gap, so he's got to back up people even more. And everybody was just cruising around at sort of half their effort. But you can't do that,
surely. Then you put your foot down when people are going to try and overtake.
Once you've got the tyres, you've got the tyres through a certain window, once you know your tyres can make a one-stop race, then you start to go a bit quicker. But it was, I know it's like Formula E to the outsider. It looks exciting because everybody's all nose to tail. But if you know what's going on, you think, well, this is stupid. It's just a slow bicycle race.
It was a good race.
Red Bull went for the hard tyre, didn't they? Because they went to go for the lane longevity. Interesting, they put Leclerc on the soft tyre in order to get the launch. That was just to make sure. I think he got by George into the first one. He had the softer tyre, but all the tyres seemed to make no difference because they were all cruising around way off pace. And it was only really when the safety car came in, which didn't help Red Bull's strategy at all, that they all went in. Then really, the race only came alive with a virtual safety car, and finally, Mercedes took a gamble, went for that alternative, and then we had a really exciting race.
One more lap would have been amazing, wouldn't it?
Yeah, but I tell you, again, Carlos was just playing with it. Carlos, the fact that he was backing Lando, so because he knew that DRS isn't sufficient to overtake. You have to have DRS and a much better tyre. So most of the overtaking was actually happening when you got a much better rear tyre. Those two tight right and lefts. You do the dummy on one side, make the leader block, and then you cut it inside. You've got better rear tyres. You've got the traction. So the only overtake's going to happen. So with traction. So Carlos was quite happy to back Lando into his DRS, to give him DRS, so he could stay ahead of the two cars with better tyres. There was a lot of strategy, slow bicycle race strategy going on. I think George did his tyres. I reckon Lewis was the one that maybe might have mounted a better attack.
But George was on it. So what's going to happen, Tiff, when Daniel Ricciardo's back fit? Will he get the seat back from Liam Lawson? Because Liam Lawson, surely you're not going to take him out now.
Not anymore. No, Liam must get that ride next year, surely.
But no, I don't mean next year. I mean this year, because he's going to be back this year at some point in a few weeks' time.
No,
at the end of the season.
Danny, how many races are left?
7, 8. Don't know. That's a guess.
I don't know.
Get your little spreadsheet out.
Seven. There's 7 more races. Yeah, Japan, 7, including Japan. So yeah, they'll give Danny. Well, give Danny. They've promised him a chance. They know what Liam could do. In fact, perhaps now, if Liam stopped now, didn't do another race, so now almost Liam's done such a great job, it might be better to avoid him making a cock up and suddenly thinking, we better use Danny instead. So maybe let Daniel not be any quicker than him. And
no,
who knows?
No, well, who knows? But it'd be interesting. I would have Liam over Daniel any day of the week.
It was a shame for Ocon, as you said. He broke down. He had a good run, really good run. And Gasly picked up. Gasly came through pretty well, didn't he? Picked up 6th place. And we have to say about Max, to be fair, because Max, got his head down, obviously pissed off, depressed by his position on the grid, but he worked really hard. I mean, nearly took 4th place off of Leclerc. So he never gave up. He gave it his all, and I respect him for that. And almost could finish 5th from 10th. Gasly was 6th, wasn't he? Piastri from 17th to 7th. And he was only 3 seconds, I think, behind Gasly, wasn't he? So incredible job by Piastri.
Yeah,
and of course, he hasn't got the same McLaren. He'll have the same McLaren as Lando's got these updates in Suzuka. So really look forward to that.
They're probably the strongest pair, aren't they?
Contrast.
Oh no, George and Lewis would probably be the strongest pair.
George and Lewis. Yeah. Well, now that going back to Carlos, I always thought he was very much a number 2 to Leclerc. And so, in my opinion, he's surprised me and gone against what I would have said at the beginning of the season. He's turning out to be the strongest Ferrari driver, which I really didn't expect. I thought Leclerc would always be ahead of him.
Can I remind you that I did call
Perez, of course.
Can I remind you that I did call Carlos at the beginning of the year, and you called Leclerc?
I'll have to reread that.
For the record.
I'll have to check. I just have to check that out. Checo, by contrast to Max, just made a cock up. I mean, he clobbered poor old Alexander Albon and got a 5-second penalty. He finished in 8th. He's 18 seconds behind Piastri. So Piastri came from behind Perez and got 18 seconds. He was 38 seconds behind Max. So Checo not being able to do the same sort of work. And then Liam Lawson 9th and Kevin Magnussen 10th. So those 2 Hasses qualifying the top 10 was great. Another story from qualifying that was exciting. So, really entertaining. I mean, still the problem of overtaking isn't resolved. The problem of these tracks just being processional, and it's only when you get a tyre degradation difference that we're going to get any real racing.
Yeah, but that's still a worry. That doesn't bother me. It was closer, Tiff. It was closer because it was
but we wanted
to
get rid of DRS. Yeah. The idea was, that the new cars, we would drop DRS completely. Now we look at the new Formula 2 car, which is for the next, 5 years, I think. They've shown the new car demonstrating. It's got a huge DRS flap at the back because the Formula 2 DRS hasn't been effective enough. So instead of designing a new car for the next 5 years that's going to be able to overtake without DRS, they designed a new car with even bigger DRS. So it's something we're stuck with, which is still a background, it's a background annoyance of however close the racing might look, as Singapore did. There's always that niggle that they're all processionally going around, tactically saving tyres. But let's not take it away from a brilliant Singapore Grand Prix, which was very entertaining. It had me on the edge of the seat because I actually thought we might get an overtake and a win. And poor old George clipping that wall, absolutely gutty. I think some person said it was a lap before, but I think it was the same lap that Lando kissed it. And I think when you're so close, you're following the car in front.
Horrible,
and you obviously you want to be a bit tighter So you want to be a bit riskier than the car in front, so you get a better line into the corner. With Lando kissing the wall, by being a bit riskier than Lando, he just clobbered the wall.
Because when you follow a car, even on a big circuit, it's tough. When you're really close following a car, because it's so easy to miss your braking points, and you can get mesmerised, transfixed a little bit by the car in front. But around there must be, oof.
It was epic. It was over in America. We had some average racing, really, I'm afraid. I mean, certainly Formula One had the most exciting race of the weekend. The IMSA boys with their LMD, what they call their GTP, which is the same as the World's Endurance LMPDA, LMDHs. They went to this IndyCar track, which is just awful. I've decided I've given up on it. They had a pretty processional race. And they've had the IndyCar race there, NASCAR races there, IMSA race there, and all produced dull races. And the trouble is, it's got no character. You realise when you watch Indy that there's that huge long straight, which is part of the Indy track, of course. And the infield, they go twiddle, 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 they come back out again. There's no elevation change. And you think about all the great sports cars, like Brands Hatch or Silverstone's a bit of a problem. They haven't got that much elevation change. Some of those American tracks are uphill, downhill.
Donington, Coy, Laguna, Seca.
Donington. Yeah. And it's just, and it doesn't create good racing. There's a lot of traffic. And 48 cars with all the different classes, and so through the Woodley, a lot of Spa, exactly. Yeah. So I would suggest that you just keep Indianapolis for as it was, which is the one race a year, the Great Indy 500, where the track is epic. But no, I'm sorry, Americans, your IndyCar road course is rubbish.
So we're down to 12 now. We're down to 12. What's happening?
Well, that's NASCAR. We haven't got to NASCAR.
Oh, NASCAR. Sorry,
You're rushing me forward.
I did watch some of the IMSA. I did watch it. I like the cars. They look amazing.
Congratulate Penske on their 1-2 for Porsche. They're the factory for Porsche. Yeah. Nick Tandy, the British driver, was in the leading pair with Mathieu Jaminet, the French driver. They actually really got a lucky break because Philippe Nasser and the other Penske Porsche fell off on his outlap and lost a lot of time. They finished second with Australian Matt Campbell.
Didn't you do that in 1986? Didn't you do that in 1986 Le Mans on your outlap?
I might have done. I don't think that was necessary for the story. It was not necessary at all. I'll continue now, shall I? The British driver Nick Yellerly, who we often comment on, he's either winning in touring GT3s in Spa and GT things, the factory BMW driver. He finished third, along with American Connor De Filippi. But not a very exciting race.
But good-looking car.
Yeah, it was Le Mans. It was Le Mans, 88, actually.
88 was it?
88.
Okay, I'll make a note of that. I'll bring that up again.
Thank you.
No doubt. I'm waiting half an hour.
Again,
half an hour in the kitty litter to get dug out. I only know that because you reminded me of my little braid lap that I crashed on as well. Anyway, the last of the 3 rounds of the NASCAR eliminations to drop it from 16 to 12, which we thought might be really exciting around the Bristol half-mile bowl, turned out to be a bit of a damp squid of a firework in the end, because quite early on, Joey Logano was involved in a crash, which put him out. One former champion out, and then also Kevin Harvick was off the pace, another champion out. So 2 champions dropped out of the 16, joining Ricky Stenhouse Jr. and Michael McDowell. And then the race itself turned out to be a bit of damp squid. There was no yellows towards the end. Dirty Den, nobody likes Denny Hamlin. Dirty Den being a very English joke for the EastEnders star, which the Americans won't know what I'm talking about. But they'll call him Dirty. They boo him. He's the most booed driver now after he put Larson in the wall. Unfortunately, Carl Larson couldn't get clear. There were no yellows towards the end, so it's like a 3-second gap with Carl Larson, who's the second best car. We were hoping there'd be a green and Larson could put Hamlin in the wall. Retribution. But it didn't happen. So it ended with another Denny Hamlin win. Dirty Den wins again.
Yes. Then down under we go, from USA to Australia.
So remind us, we've got the Chevys and we've got the
Chevrolet Camaros and Ford Mustangs. The 2 homologated cars with about 36, big fields, 40 cars, 36 cars, huge fields. But again, whereas the mid-season, the Ford seemed to have caught up a bit. They'd changed the balance of power and balance of aero and balance of this and balance of that. But the Camaros came first 5 places. It's a 2-driver race. There's a couple of 2-driver races coming up. This was the Sandown 500. And then, funny enough, all the lead drivers of the first three are the three lead drivers in the championship. Because Brock Feeney won it with help from Jamie Whincup. Brody Kostecki was second with help from David Russell. And Shane Van Gisbergen, with help from Richie Stanaway, came from 17th to 3rd to keep his championship hopes alive. Because it's Kostecki leads the championship from Gisbergen, from Feeney, with 3 rounds to go, which including next up the Great Bathurst 1,000 Ks. So that's always spectacular on telly. That's worth staying up at night for to watch the Bathurst 1000.
My nephews who listen avidly to this will be at the Bathurst. So hello to Lewis and Thomas and gang.
But it's definitely going to be Chevy driver wins. Back home, British Superbikes for amazingly entertaining Alton Park.
I love it.
Whoa.
I'm really into it now. I'm glad you got me into it. Thank you.
The beer monster Ducatis were back on top, but only just. They won all 3 races, but they were all controversial spectacular because the battle of the championship was between those 2 riders, Tommy Bridewell and Glenn Irwin. And the first race, they swapped the lead, I think, twice on the last lap, the 2 of them, until Bridewell outbraked himself down to the chicane at the back and dropped to 4th place, leaving Glenn Irwin to win. The second race, there was all sorts of controversy against Bridewell, tended to be the leading rider, Irwin chasing hard and overtaking. But there was a big shunt, and they had a safety car at the restart. And Bridewell went too soon, realised he was going to catch the pace car, which of course you've got to let the safety car, pace car, / whatever it is, into the pit lane before you catch it. So you had to put on the brakes. And of course, you're not allowed to brake. And the other riders then that had anticipated it correctly were all on full speed. So they all sort of swamped Bridewell, and it all came to controversy. And Bridewell was given a penalty, which he couldn't take because it was the last lap. It was just a run to the finish. But I think he crossed the line, I don't know where. So I think he crossed the line second still.
But he should know better. He should know better than that. If any driver should know better.
He just misjudged it. He just misjudged it. So he got a penalty, which dropped him to 6th. So, I mean, nearly won the first race but made a mistake. Then nearly won the second race but made a mistake. Tommy Bridewell finally won the last race. So Irwin had 2 wins and a second in that last race. And they're now separated by half a point. They're like, I think it's 360 against 360.5. Quite where it's Irwin that leads. Where he got the 0.5 from, it must have been some sort of a shortened race. So there was 2 rounds to go there. I think, where do they go? The Brands Hatch is one. I think maybe Silverstone next. So very exciting. It's going to be a beer party at the end, but who is on top of the podium at the end? Who knows? Big up for Lee Jackson Kawasaki. He must be a bit frustrated, bridesmaid. He had 2 seconds and a third. So wherever the beers were, Jackson was the man chasing as hard as he could. But spectacular stuff around Alton Park.
Good.
There were some dune buggies in Sardinia, as I said, promised, but I don't think anybody bothered to watch. And if you did, as I did check it on YouTube today, it was all about dust and going through water splashes and windscreen wipers breaking and lots of commentary shouting, lots of shouting. Maybe we should do our podcast in a sort of that manner. It seems to be the trendy way to go, shouldn't it? Anyway, someone won and someone didn't, and they all looked wet, and they all looked cheering. No spectators watching. I don't think many people are watching it on Tinternet anymore either. Let us know down below. Let us know down below. Is anyone watching it? Well, but they say, I mean, I say it's dead because I don't know how they're sponsoring it or funding it. But they've launched their new hydrogen version. So they boldly go forth.
Which I think is a good thing. 2026, I think that is. Is it? I don't know. Soon, anyway.
I don't know. So that was most of the international excellence. Lots of little single-seaters going around Monza crashing into each other. If you look at YouTube, plenty of crashing going on. And there were, of course, Japanese GT we don't talk about.
Some single-seaters up at Anglesey as well. Louise Deason did well in Formula Ford. So, yeah, there's plenty of motorsport going on.
There's always plenty of club races.
What's going on?
Well, next week, of course, we go off to Suzuka, but Suzuka is another no overtaking circuit. So again, it'll be spectacular. And the drivers love it. Quite often you get these circuits that aren't good for racing, but as a driver, you love it. I mean, I've raced so much in Suzuka because I raced a lot in Japan in Formula 2 and Group C cars.
Is the track the same now, pretty much?
On your own. Yeah. ruined a couple of corners to take the walls further away. And of course, where there's now a chicane, the last lap chicane, which causes all controversy, it was flat out over the brow. It was epic. So we came out of the 130R, which they made easier now because it was too dangerous. They made it the easier corner. And then if you got an extra 2 miles an hour to 130R, you went over that crest. So it was a right-hand curve where the chicane now sits. And sort of halfway down the pits, you'd then be overtaking with the slipstream in a natural overtake. But now it's just that the chicane now just causes controversy because it's the classic, the same as at Monza, where because the leader blocks the inside line, you outbrake him down the outside, you get half a wheel. Is he fully ahead? And then you all turn into the chicane, and then if they clash, the guy overtaking shortcuts the chicane, and on the radio, he pushed me out. And that's the only overtaking spot, pretty much, when your tyres are equal grip. So it's going to be a procession again. So it's qualifying is so important. And again, just keeping your tyres fit. So I don't know, another circuit which is spectacular to watch, but I don't expect much overtaking going on. But it does happen past the pits when you got better traction coming out of the chicane because you've got better tyres, then use the DRS, then overtaking is possible.
And no doubt,
and MotoGP boys,
Red Bull will be back with a vengeance, no doubt.
They'll be back very much with a vengeance. MotoGP boys down in India, the Buddha circuit, which was the Formula One track, I think, that was a long time ago. We had Indian Grand Prix, wasn't it? 5, 6, 7 years ago.
You won something in India, didn't you?
You are looking. I'm glad. Yeah. Forget my Le Mans era. Let's just talk about the 1993 Bangalore Grand Prix, shall we? The winner of the 1993 Bangalore Grand Prix sits opposite you. Thank you.
Very good.
Yeah, I think it is the Formula One track. So that'll be hot and humid for the bikers, MotoGP. World Superbikes, also Razgatlioglu is still trying to track down Bautista with 3 rounds to go with the Aragon. That'll be spectacular around that amazing Aragon track. NASCAR start then the next 3 of their eliminations. So it'll be 12 going down to 8 after the next 3 races. They start at Texas in a 1.5 mile track. I always think the 1.5 mile track's the best tracks, I think, for racing. It tends to be the best races. And BTCCCCs at Silverstone at home or on telly. Always a good entertaining Sunday afternoon on the telly.
Tim and Paul this weekend, okay?
Yeah, but there's no tyre stacks. So Tim and Paul will be happy, but you'll see so many bloody flipping track limits out of cops and through the complex because there's no flipping terrorizing Marina. I mean, they will. And I know I should be watching the television. You watch that camera shot looking at exiting cops. Lap 1 will be at least 6 cars will just shoot out to the left. And even when the racing goes on, they don't seem to penalise it because I think there's so many people doing it. They seem to find it hard. So there'll be a track limit drama at Silverstone. I don't like the circuit anyway. It's a stupid short circuit. They should put them on the international track or the full track every time.
Yeah.
And that's, so plenty of entertainment wherever you are.
Good.
Suzuka will wake up, Sunday morning. I quite like those Grand Prix.
Yeah, me too, actually.
Where you record them when you're asleep, wake up, don't switch your phone on, don't look on social media, go downstairs with your second cup of coffee and watch it as live at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock, whatever time you get up on Sunday morning. And then you've got the rest of the day to enjoy. Whereas, 1 o'clock in the afternoon ruins your day on a Sunday in the summer.
You speak for yourself. Love it. Okay, good stuff. Thanks for joining. As always, we'll see you next week. Well, got any ideas? Put them in the comments below. Always keen to improve if we can or where we can. Cheers.
Yerry, we look forward to your Yerry. Your English is getting worse, Yerry. Some of your sentences
Yerry, I'll have a drink on you, baby.
Cheers.